Hello, everybody. My name's James, and for the benefit of those listening back to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp it, it's just gone past 2 p.m. on Friday, April the 11th. So we are circa 20 hours away from the double game week 32 deadline, which is at 11 a.m. UK time tomorrow. As per usual, I'll be going through questions in order of submission. Anything that's kind of repeat similar, I may well skip. But before I get into the questions, just want to make a bit of an announcement that one of our patrons has asked me to do, and I'm happy to share. This is from one of our patrons, Hogan, who is Draft Alchemy on Twitter, and I'm actually going to share his tweet right now. So if you go to my timeline at Planet FPL Pod, it should be the most recent tweet that you see. This is a message from Hogan who wants to spread the word about something quite important. He wants to spread the word about a young boy called William, who's suffering from a rare form of muscular dystrophy. And his family has been working for years to fund a CRISPR gene editing treatment that's specifically designed to help him. The treatment is ready to go, but they need to raise a final $800,000 by May the 1st to start production. His dad is rowing the Rogue River as a symbolic journey to help reach their goal, 1 mile for every $5,000 raised. It's a powerful, hopeful story, and Hogan would be very grateful if you took a moment to check it out or share it with someone who might want to get involved. So look, Hogan's obviously asking for donations there, which people would, he'd obviously be very grateful for, and I'm sure the family would be as well. But I tell you, the best thing you could do actually is just share that tweet. That's from @DraftAlchemy on Twitter, and you can find it via my timeline as well. Right, let's get into the questions. We will start with Dilji07 says, "Hope you're well, James. Good luck for the incoming avalanche of should I bench boost this game week or double game week 33 questions with all the debate about the Premier League being boring. What's your all-time favourite Premier League game?" Wow, I want to celebrate for the fact that the first question wasn't FPL related. Any win against Arsenal, mate. It's my favourite one, probably. Okay, let's approach that from a neutral perspective. The one that the older ones like me, I'm in that category now, talk about a lot is the first Liverpool-Newcastle 4-3 from 95-96 season. We mentioned the other day the Chelsea-Man City 4-4 from last season was a great game. I actually remember a terrific game, which is often gets forgotten, which was actually won by Arsenal. 5-3 at Stamford Bridge in the 11-12 season, which was a wild game that could have been like 8-6. It was carnage. Completely against perhaps what we see from those two teams now in terms of their defensive strength. The Man United 4-3 against Man City. I tell you, a great one as well was the Man City-Liverpool game in the 18-19 season, which wasn't that high scoring. Man City won 2-1. You might remember Leroy Sané getting the winner about 10 minutes to go. I think that was probably the highest quality level Premier League football match arguably ever played, actually. That was the year Liverpool finished second on, I think, 97 points to City's 98, I want to say, from memory. So there's a handful of games for you. You may have some different preferences. Frugal Frostbite says, as a Liverpool fan, I'm thrilled that Salah is staying with us for now. What would be your prediction for the price of Salah next season? Blimey, and the second question isn't about bench boosting or game week 33. He's probably got to go into the 14 bracket, isn't he? Was that Haaland at the... I can't remember if Haaland was 14 or 15 now. It feels like so long ago since I've owned him. Well, for me, it's actually been it's been about a year, hasn't it? At 14 or so, I think. He's probably got to go in as the highest price player. I think he probably should go in more expensive than Haaland next season now, despite Haaland's still continued outstanding goals record. So, yeah, 14. You know me, right? I'd happily price him at like 16 million and say, right, okay, you really want it? You really pay for it. Alex Hemmings says, "Hi, James. I'm on Bench Boost 32. Here we go. One free transfer, and I have Gordon, Saka, and Rashford. Do I hope for the best or use my free on a sideways move to Murphy or Asensio? Barnes seems like a risk with Gordon on the bench." So we do think the word this morning does seem to be that Anthony Gordon may be back in the squad for Liverpool. He hasn't signed for him yet. For Newcastle this weekend. But yeah, your chances of getting, I mean, there's every chance from that. It's 3 1-pointers, isn't it? I have an inkling that Saka will start. I don't think the other two will. So it doesn't feel strong enough from that perspective to bench boost it. The easiest one to sell here is Gordon. I don't think Rashford starts, but Rashford and the last half hour or so against the tiring Southampton may still do well. So yeah, Gordon to Murphy seems fairly straightforward. Greg Williams this afternoon, James. I have Munoz and Eze. Would you get Mateta in for either Marmoush or Evan Nilsson? The latter for a hit, or roll and get an Arsenal defender and Villa player in 33 on free hit 34. Cheers. Free hit 34 certainly helps with the idea of getting Mateta. I probably would go for the latter option though, and I think Marmoush is you definitely want for 33, so I wouldn't be selling that. Evan Nilsson is yes expendable. Would you rather have an Arsenal defender for 33? Evan Nilsson goes to Palace in 33. That's close, that. He's on a good little streak, Evan Nilsson, isn't he? I'd probably wait it out, I think, Greg. I think so. Frederick Hurt says, did Gabriel to Kivior want to take a hit to go Bowen to Rodgers as well? Next week, yet a hit to go Cliver and Murphy to Saka and Marino. Would you approve? I'm not sure if I've read that right, Frederick. Sorry. You want to take a hit to go Bowen to Rodgers now? I wouldn't do that. I think Bowen would be great for you in 33, and it's probably 50-50 whether Rodgers starts. So taking a hit for him doesn't feel right. Cliver and Murphy to Saka and Marino next week. Yeah, I mean, if you feel confidence in, you will have confidence in Saka, I'm sure. If you have confidence in Marino as well, fine. But is that a consequence of going Bowen to Rodgers now to make that happen? I suspect maybe that's what you meant by this question. I just wouldn't do it, Frederick. I'd leave the options open at the moment, and I'd probably leave it be, mate. Matt Bryant says, hello, mate. Gordon is my dilemma this game. On bench boost, worth a transfer to switch him to Murphy. Also have Saka and Saliba, but bench boost still feels like the play. Have a good one. Yeah, I'd get it done, Matt, and that's on both counts. I would proceed with the bench boost. I think as a kind of covered with Clayton on Wednesday, we covered it again on our Patreon podcast this morning. I think with the Arsenal players, if you've got Raya, Saliba, Saka, I think you should feel very safe to proceed with a bench boost. I really can't be seeing many circumstances where Saka would be a bench player anyway. So I think in most cases he's part of your starting 11. So it's not actually impactful to your bench boost. I think Raya and Saliba will play, so I would continue. The Villa players with your Consors, Rodgers, Rashfords and Gordon's here, and the odd ones like Foden feels like it could be a 0-pointer. Again, I think he probably does start on more awkward ones. I actually think with the Arsenal players, you'll probably be all right, but it depends who they are. If they're their main three, fine. If you've got like Timber, that's like quite a scary one where I think he probably doesn't start. David Hunter says, hi James, what did you make of Ekiteke last night? Yeah, good. I mean, he took the goal incredibly well, David. He's got, I have to be careful here because people will kind of overstate this. There's a little bit of Isak in him, I thought. Just a little bit. It's that kind of, I don't know if it's more his frame that made me think that. He's quite lanky but quite skinny. He's not like built in terms of big muscle mass or anything. Then maybe that's where the comparison comes from. Beautiful goal that he scores. It's so well struck. His moments on the ball were good. Good off the ball running. Felt like when he got on it, that was the only time I felt kind of real fear during the course of the game last night. So, yeah, very good forward. There's a lot of people going to be looking at him a lot. And I know there has been a lot were looking at him previously before he went to Frankfurt. Chris Bruce says, hype, you're enjoying the sunshine. Do you need a new Forest correspondent after Mark's news? Would you take a job like that if offered? Well, I don't know specifically exactly what Mark's role is. And, for those who haven't seen, obviously Mark has said he's going to have to step down from FPL content. Would I take the job? It depends, A, what the money is, and B, what exactly the role is. And I'm not too certain what that is. That's for Mark to answer rather than me. And I'm not sure how much he can and he can't say. In terms of Mark as a Forest correspondent, we don't know yet, is the honest answer. I'm not gonna bullshit you and not answer. It's a line, isn't it? Is it FPL content or isn't? I know Mark's going to continue his Forest podcast work with the Forest pod he's normally on. So we might get away with it, we might not. The honest answer is I don't know yet. So I can only answer it as I know at this moment. But I can tell you that Mark is scheduled to come on and do Forest v Brentford unless they put their foot down ahead of them playing each other, which will be before the 35 deadline. That's the plan. If it's Mark's last one, then he's obviously been a great servant to us, giving us his Forest insight. And obviously, you know, it kind of echoed the tributes that everyone's been given for Mark in terms of what he's brought to the FPL sphere of content. Without people like Mark, it's a good chance I wouldn't be sitting here now. So very grateful to everything Mark's done. Alex MJ87 says, hi James, plan was bench boost 32, free hit 33, use the wild card, also need for 34, got Elanga, Kluivert, Bruno, which to sell for Murphy, who to sell for a hit for a Newcastle defender, or Pope, Kirkes, 8, Nori or Jose Sarr, or cancel bench boost. But there's a lot going on here, mate. I have an inkling Elanga might be a sub. I've got no intel on that. Absolutely none. I just think it might be that he's a sub. Kluivert, we don't really know where we stand at the moment. So, I mean, look, you could get no minutes from those two. So, it's probably an abort, isn't it? In terms of your moving forward, it might be that... I mean, Bruno's fixtures till the end of the season are not too bad. And actually, Bruno Fernandes obviously can return at any time. He's arguably... the cutting Elanga feels like it's one you want to go back to. I think if you cut Kluivert or Bruno Fernandes, you won't want to go back. But Elanga you may do. So I would keep Elanga. But I think the bench boost could only still be considered if you keep Bruno Fernandes. I'd probably cut Kluivert. I'm not sure how that's relatable to the hit for the Newcastle defender or Wolves defender. I wouldn't be taking, as much as I could predict Wolves for a clean sheet this weekend, I probably will. I wouldn't be taking a hit for one. To go for Pope, yeah, if you want to add Newcastle player, I mean, that feels like the priority. Arguably should have been done in 31 in all seriousness. Gazman says, hi James, 1 free transfer and Kluivert and Wood flags. Own 1 Palace and 2 Newcastle. Planned move Bruno or Bumo to Saka next week. Could go Kluivert. Saka instead if I roll. God, guys, these questions are really long-winded today. Chance to flags this week or move 1. Thanks. I would just be prioritising getting a third Newcastle player first and foremost, mate. Don't overlook what's in front of you. Get a third Newcastle player, mate. Frugal Frostbite says, after what Eddie Howe has said on Gordon, is he worth a free transfer for someone like Murphy? Or was he just flavour of the week last week as it was against Leicester? I'm swaying towards hold. Murphy is, forgive me, it's either 3rd or 4th for attacking returns in 2025. So, yeah, look, obviously Leicester flavour of the month in terms of attacking players to play against them. But yeah, I would be moving Gordon to Murphy if I was in that position at the moment. He's putting money in the bank for something next week as well. Noah Zari says, hi James, I planned for bench boost 32, but with Saka and Saliba uncertainty to start, I'm getting cold feet. Bench boost 33 is an option, but will take a hit and be forced to play free hit in game at 34. I'd proceed. And these ones are nearly impossible for me to answer, right, because I can't see your whole team. But Arteta has said that Saka is fit and available for selection. So I think, again, most people start him this week, surely, don't they? So it's not impacting your bench boost. I get it with Saliba. I'll repeat what we said on Wednesday, that in my opinion, it makes sense for me for Saliba and Kiwior to play together to build the understanding and their relationship playing together, because they haven't that much, right? And they've got to do it again on Wednesday night in the Bernabeu. So I think they keep playing. Remember, it's 4-day gap as well. The Villa one is so much worse with the 3-day gap. Just a note, by the way, I've just seen on Maxence Lacroix of Crystal Palace, who had the concussion substitution against Brighton. He's been confirmed available, and so too Chris Richards. So Richards presumably will just come in for Mark Gay. Moving on, Uros Milicevic says, I need to replace Gabriel and Semenyo for bench boost this game week. Why do you need to replace Semenyo? My bench would be Verbruggen, Dunk, and the 2 players I bring in. I already have 3 from Newcastle and Palace. Who would you recommend? Free hit 34. Okay, so you want to replace Gabriel and Semenyo. Truthfully, I would still go Saliba first and foremost. Replacing Semenyo with an enabler. tricky because ideally I'd like to say to you Elanga or Rogers, and I don't really want to recommend either of them at the moment. I'd just be keeping Semenyo, mate. Semenyo's like a near certain starter for Bournemouth. I don't see enough value in moving that on this week, so I would keep him. And I would move Gabriel, and my first choice, considering you're covered with Newcastle, would still be to go for Saliba. Frugal Frostbite says, if you had to pick to get rid of full English breakfast or roast dinners for the rest of your life, which one are you picking? I reckon it would probably do me a favour to get rid of the full English breakfast, mate. I think, yeah. That's the one that would probably do me the favour, mate. Greg Williams says, free hit 34. I have 9 players, 11 with transfers. Or is there a better week to free hit? Again, mate, impossible to answer. What I can say is what I always say. It's not the how many, it's the who. If you have an outstanding 9 in game week 34, you might end up with a stronger team than mine, which is going to wildcard because I need to balance other things. I don't know what you've got, mate. So, but if you've got a strong core of 9, treble Newcastle, bits of Arsenal, maybe bits of Chelsea and Wolves, you're absolutely fine for 34, mate. So don't obsess on the numbers necessarily. You could say, I got 11 in game week 34, but you've got treble Everton away to Chelsea and double Ipswich away to Newcastle. Right? What's the big deal? Right, it's better to have it's better to have a very good 9 than a shit 11. Chris Bruce says, free hit in 34. Would you bench boost with Vardy, Raya, Kirkes and Bowen? Or with bench boost 33, Verbruggen, Isak, Murphy and Kirkes? Cheers, smash the like. It's close. No reason to kind of doubt any of the 4 players in 33 for minutes. Obviously, mind you, I don't think there's much reason here in 32. But the fact Vardiol's one of them. I don't see why Vardiol wouldn't play, personally. I'd be staggered if Raya doesn't play. I think it's probably this one, Chris. Little preference 32, I think, yeah. BHHH67 says, hello, James. Would you bench boost Saliba, Raya, Saka / Rogers and Williams, or wait until 33 with 2 free transfers and use triple captain on Isak this week? Thanks, love the content. You're very welcome, mate. I would do it this week. Hanny says, hi, James. Would you start both Nico Williams and Milenkovic beside Muniz? I presume it's meant to be Munoz, or put Vardiol instead of one of the Forest defenders? And if yes, who? I would play Vardiol over Williams, probably. He got some really dangerous positions when moved to right back against Villa last week, and he probably will play right back tomorrow as well. I just think Milenkovic from the set play is such a huge threat that I'd rather play him first and foremost. Again, that's back to the less ball dominant sides play the centre back over full back argument that I've kind of mentioned with Brentford players in the past. Yes, I would play Vardiol over them. I certainly understand the perspective many people are landing though, going, well, I've got Mateta and Sarr, or Mateta and Eze, or a combination of 2 of those players, and playing Vardiol is conflicting. Sure, and if you feel strongly about that, then by all means go to 2 Forest players. But I would be going Vardiol, probably over both, to be honest, but I'd go Vardiol, Milenkovic, Williams as the order. Philip Sutter says, hi, James, thanks for the great content. Do you still think game week 32 bench boost is better than 33? Seems a lot of the bench might be 1 or 0 pointers due to rotation. Best of luck for the game week. Circumstantial, my friend. I don't feel as positive about it as I did a few weeks ago, because I think people have largely been quite unlucky with injuries. I think the Villa one was always going to be very scary for this week. But things like Elanga, just really unlucky if you've kind of landed with that one specifically. I think planning to use that as part of the bench boost this week. So it just completely depends who's in your team, right? It really does. If you're sitting there with no flags at the moment, maybe you've still got Palmer rather than Saka, and these things just look more convenient. If you look at, say, my 11 this week, I'm not going to read it all out, but like I haven't got any real concerns in it other than Kluivert. So Kluivert is a good example of, like, does that make it like a concern this week? Now, my bench this week would be nowhere near strong enough to bench boost if I was planning to do it, right? With the likes of Castagne, I've got Bowen as cover for Kluivert, Kirkes, I've got Fabianski. This is not even a goalkeeper, right? So for me, it's just like, it would obviously be not a consideration whatsoever. He's purely, completely dependent on what you are down to. I think those who set where they wildcarded to bench boost 32 have been really unlucky. I'm pretty sure one of the drafts I did was like, Elanga. We looked at João Pedro, and he didn't play last week. I'm pretty sure, as I said on Monday, that he will come back into the team tomorrow. So I just think it's landed not as kindly for people. But some people are going to be sitting there like, yeah, locked and ready. I feel confident in the Arsenal players. Let's do it. Others are not, and they're going to hold it off, and that's fine. So there isn't it's like people come with a question. It's like, oh, what's the best week to wildcard? What's in your team, mate? It's all circumstantial. Shit answer, but truthful answer. Hanny says, also, would you start Foden if no leaks? Yes, definitely. You committed to him. I spoke about this Monday. It kind of made the point in terms of Foden and Savinho. If you went for these players, like you just kind of head down and keep going, right? Because you're not going to sell them next week. You're going to be quite hopeful with minutes, right? I would only think of it like this at the moment. Guardiola picked a very, very narrow system last week to try and overload against Manchester United in central areas. Now, it was quite dull, but it stopped a lot of concern in terms of transition against Manchester United. Was Crystal Palace's strengths? Yeah, that. And system quite similar to Manchester United. So I think it could be quite narrow again. If it is, I'd expect Foden to start. It is the early kickoff. You may get some leaks. If you don't, yeah, I would go with him. Again, subject to what's your alternative. But yeah, most cases I'd play him. Chris Bruce says, with a lack of shooting outside the box except Share, do you think Bale would have been as effective if he played now? If you've got a player that can strike with the ferocity of a Gareth Bale, you wouldn't tell him not to do it, mate. One of the best pure long-range strikers the Premier League's seen. I'll give you a comparison. I think one of the best pure strikers in this league at the moment is Marmoush, actually, in terms of his technique and the way he strikes and the cleanness of it. You can get real power in his strikes. Look at his goal against Brighton as an example. You wouldn't tell him not to shoot from distance. Pep didn't. That's Pep team. And he scored from, 25, 30 yards against Brighton. So, no. If you've got someone who is extraordinarily good at shooting from long distance, then you wouldn't stop him, right? Compare with someone like Mo. You wouldn't want Mo shooting from 30 yards, would you? If Declan Rice over a free kick now, you're not going to tell him not to shoot, are you? Khalid Skaney says, hello, James. With the latest from Arteta about the readiness of Saka, do you think he and Saliba and Timber will start? And from the above three, in addition to Foden, who is one player you will start from the four. So I think I'm going to kind of largely skip that because I covered all of those players. I think Timber, I don't think will start this weekend. Martin says, bench of Martinez, Saka, Duncan, Vardy. Should I bench boost? Wouldn't think twice about it, mate. Absolutely. Hanny says, is a -4 to put a doubler, Watkins or Rodgers, in 33 a good idea? We'll be removing either Isak or Murphy. Let's get through this week, mate. There's information to learn, right? So, perfect example. You'd asked me this question last week. I'd been like, yeah, Watkins be back in the Villa team against Paris Saint-Germain. Right, he wasn't. Played Rashford as a 9. So Watkins now looks good this week. So as a consequence, is Watkins now behind Rashford in the pecking order? Right. There's 2 games of information to learn from, mate. Just focus at this moment on that, on what's ahead of you. You may have an injury that affects some of your decision making here. I would say, if you're asking me right now, I'm sure Rodgers is a great pick for 33. Watkins, we can't say. Demetrius G says, start Rodgers or Marmoush and start Concert or Vardy. I'm pretty sure I'd be the Manchester City player in both circumstances here. I'd be Marmoush over Rodgers anyway, personally. I think Marmoush is deadly. Just spoken up about his shooting ability, and I think City will win tomorrow, actually. So Marmoush anyway. I think even if I thought Rodgers would start, I'd have that conclusion. Vardy over Concert would be similar reasons, really. So, yeah, the 2 City players. Spooky Sorcerer says, with Slot saying Bradley's likely to start, do I get him for Gabriel over Saliba for bench boost 32 and double game at 33? Really like the upside, and also with risk of Saliba being benched, free hit 34. Yeah, don't mind. Don't mind. Bradley's useful to you in 34 as well, is the only thing I'd add as a condition against that. But yeah, Bradley's fine, mate. Probably, I would say, if you're... The thing to consider here as well is, I don't know what other problems you're carrying. So I've used an example where I'm going to have to wildcard in game week 34. I'm not going to pick him up now, but I wouldn't rule picking him up next week just for the 1 week. Bradley is a good pickup for someone like me. Now, many of you would have used that wildcard. You go Connor Bradley, that's fine for now and 33, perfectly good. But what about the run-in when Trent's back? What does that mean? And are you going to have to deal with other fires potentially? And I'll just factor that in. How important is that to you? So you're looking at 32, 33. Cool. What about 35 to 38? Now, the word at the moment with Trent is probably targeting to be back for sort of the end of the month, maybe around about the Tottenham game in game week 34. So 35 to 38 might be a problem. If it's not, and you can go there and it's no problem, you're not concerned about it, and he may even stay in the team anyway, given Trent's contract status, absolutely fine. I suspect he probably wouldn't though. For the next 2 weeks, very good pickup. Dan Nice says, hi James, thoughts on going from Gabriel to Bradley this week, then going from Burns to Saliba next week to bench boost? Thanks. All fine, mate. Diljit says, Chinese or Indians? Chinese for me, mate. I can't deal with the spice. James Morgan says, afternoon, I wildcarded last week, set up for bench boost 32, triple captain 33. My bench is Verbruggen, Saka, Saliba and Milenkovic. Also have Mitoma starting, who's doubtful. Should I sack it off and just triple captain Isak instead? No, because I don't think you're going to be in a better position next week with Verbruggen and Mitoma going to Brentford and Milenkovic going to Tottenham. I think you're still better off now. I thought from Hertzler's comments this morning, my read on that would be, okay, it's Leicester, Adingra will probably play, and therefore Mitoma wouldn't. So I'd actually just be looking to move Mitoma on at this moment in time. Danny Smith says, hi James, hope you're well. Stuck between triple captain 32 and bench boost 32 with Gabriel, Gordon and Saka as the main issues. What defender would you advise for the next 2 game weeks if I'm to chance the mins of the other two? I think it's Saliba or Bradley are the 2 names that have really come up for those 2 weeks. A Newcastle defender, if you don't have one, I would probably still go to first and foremost because of what's right in front of your face this coming game week. In terms of the bench boost triple captain, I can't really answer your question. The priority there is to move on. Gabriel was completely useless for you. Then Gordon, Saka's not a player you want to move on. Stuart Day says, James, on 3rd week of assistant manager, got 2 Newcastle, Isak and Schär and Mateta. Would you go Howe and Eze Sarr or Glasner and Murphy? Midfielder is for a hit. Selling Cliver or Manetzi, wildcard 33. Like and subscribe. Thanks. Yes, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, if you're watching live or on repeat, a like and a sub goes a really long way. And for the audio listeners, so does a 5-star review. I'd go the Eddie Howe route personally. I think there is a chance that Glasner's going to be a complete bust this week. And actually, the fact that he's not the double-double for you, as you're saying, it's the last week of the assistant manager. You don't even have to be concerned about moving Howe on next week. So, Eddie Howe for me, mate. I think the markets have seen Rob T's graphics have Howe ahead in terms of expectation for this week. And that's based on 1,000 simulations. It might be 10,000, forgive me. One or the other. Amanda Bergen says, hi, James. On bench boost 32 and have Gabriel and Foden with 2 free transfers. With Van Heck out, do you still bet on Brighton to keep a clean sheet? And best Foden replacement, if we get a leak, he's benched. Have 3 hits still. So bench boost 32. Right, pain in the arse. The problem is you've obviously got more in terms of your value there. Players I want to recommend to you instead of Foden, Ilanga can't. Bowen this week's wrong. Mitoma can't now. Adingra's too much of a chance. Mensah should be okay for a start. There's nothing from Wolves that appeals. Ironically, if Foden's out, it probably arguably makes Savinho maybe even the right choice, but it just feels like it could easily switch and Foden's your main one kind of next week, right? I don't really feel too comfortable in either of them. Amanda, dealing with Gabriel's the priority. In terms of Van Heck being out, would I still back Brighton for a clean sheet? It's probably not so much that I'd back Brighton for a clean sheet. It's just very difficult to back Leicester to score at the moment. So yeah, I'd be quite happy going to Lewis Dunk if that's who you're thinking. Or even a Stupinan. I don't really see a reason why he wouldn't play. Stavros Paphoma says, hi James, I'm on Arsman. How already have Isak? Which other asset do you recommend? Thank you in regards from Cyprus. And Jacob Murphy's the boy, mate. Nick Giordano says, bench 1, Rogers, Vardiol, Saliba, or bring in Sarr from Kunku and play him instead. From that lot, ironically, I probably would bench Saliba. I'd chance Rogers, I think. I think so. Because it's one of them, it's like, if he starts, I don't play him. How gutted am I? So I probably would bench Saliba out of that lot. I probably wouldn't bother actually with the Crystal Palace at the moment. I think it's an extremely difficult double. It's two of the toughest away games you can have. It does feel like it could be very suitable to Ismaila Sarr, but I highly recommend listening to yesterday's Clash of Correspondents. I think that probably is going to put you off a bit, although we do talk about the prospect of these games being better for Sarr. But then consider 32. It's probably unlikely you're going to get the double out of the Palace player. I probably wouldn't bother. Let's put it this way. I've got one free transfer this week. I've got 2 Palace. I'm probably rolling, mate. And that's carrying Kluivert. You're very welcome, Nick. Ellie Aviv says, thanks for the great content. Would appreciate your advice. Need players for 32 and 34 only. Have 5 doublers for 32. I'm wondering whether to go Eze, Sarr or a single game week player and save a transfer in 34. So the problem is, I'd like to say to a Liverpool player for just West Ham at home and Tottenham at home in 32 and 34. But which Diaz, Jota, like which one? I don't really feel like they're of great interest at the moment. And again, then it's like, oh, Langer, Everton at home, Brentford at home. Oh, shit, is he going to play? And then it's Mitoma. Oh, shit. I don't know if Minter's going to play in a few weeks. I mean, it's just 32, 34. I think it's arguably a Chelsea player. Could be. Neto didn't play at all last night. I don't think much for him as an asset, but just for the 2 home games is probably fine. Madueke is the cheekier one. Obviously came on, scored last night. That's riskier. If you're saying just 32 and 34 only, Ellie, assuming you can't get to Cole Palmer, I'm going to say Pedro Neto, I think. Stuart Webb says, hi James, love the content. I am on free hit 33. How many doublers would you have in the starting 11 for free hit 33? Good question. Singlers I would only have is probably Salah and maybe Jared Bowen. I think if I was free hit in 33. I think there's a fair chance you'd only be 2 up front, which could be Marmoush and Watkins or Mateta. I think you will see next week, if neither Mateta or Watkins are popular, you might well find that there's a few teams free hitting in 4-5-1s, which would be wild considering it's felt like it's got to be a front three all this year. But I don't think even those with the single fixtures, West Ham don't really have a forward at the moment. Arsenal obviously double, but don't have a forward at the moment. Manchester United, you're not going Højlund or Xerxes. They're the ones from the singles for West Ham, Man United you probably want to approach in terms of the forward players. You're not going to go like Solanke or Vissa. I don't think you do on a free hit, something like that. João Pedro, I don't think you do. Marmoush is a shoe-in for the double. So it could be that it's sort of like 4-5-1, possibly. I mean, probably 4-4-2 being probably more likely. And Mateta will be like a default choice because you just go, right, it's Bournemouth at home and then whatever Arsenal is, it is. So I'd probably just Salah. I'm thinking about the midfielders that you'd want. At the moment, it's difficult to pick a City player, but I think if you're on free hit, you punt one in 33. Whether it's Foden, Savinho, maybe even KDB, although unlikely. I think you do punt one of them. Palace might be how you feel on sort of Eze versus Sarr after game week 32, but I think probably one of them is reasonable. Probably for that week specifically, maybe more Eze. Actually, I don't think Sarr will start both games in 33. Eze might. That's my take at the moment. Villa, there'll be interest between Rodgers, Asensio, Rashford. So it might even be defined by that a little bit. And I think Arsenal, you definitely want Saka and you may want Marino, Martinelli. So ultimately with that, I think how many singlers, and say whether it's like Salah, Bowen, will be influenced by how many of those other doublers you have confidence in. And also then that falls backwards, right? So then if you think, I don't have Saliba starts against Ipswich or Kivio starts. If you're sitting in, I don't know, an Arsenal player plays twice, maybe it becomes Raya by default. Maybe you land thinking similar about the likes of Konsa. I think Vardiol goes in. And then maybe you might end up looking at someone like Connor Bradley is probably going to be the outstanding single game week player, I think, in game week 33. So it'll be defined by your confidence in the doublers in 33. Emil Seelick says, hi James, I'm moving assistant manager from Frank to Glasner. I have Mateta, Sarr and Munoz. I'm planning to keep Mateta. Who would you recommend selling? to accommodate the assistant manager. Also, I'm playing free hit 34 and bench boost 36. See, I get it's probably sell Sarr, but there might be more choice defensively at the moment, actually. And maybe there's a case to say, okay, look, you had the Munoz return last week. The double's rough, isn't it, for a defensive player, let's be honest. So maybe it is move Munoz on to put Glasner in. And that will also cover up a little bit for the clean sheet of Munoz. Cuts it in half, doesn't it? Hassel Dazzle says, hi, James. Hello, Madrid. Yeah, that went well. Benching dilemma here. Vardio or Timber? I don't think Timber will play, so it's straightforward. Savio or Saka? Straightforward again. Same reason as Saka, mate. Love the pods. Get out the great work. Thank you, mate. Next up is Danny says, hi, James. Can we raise the stakes between you and Suj? Go on then. If he finishes above you, you wear a West Ham shirt in the end of season video and vice versa. No, bollocks. Fuck off. Not interested in sort of shit, mate. So, and then clickbaity Planet FPL. No, I don't want to wear that shirt and I'm not doing it, mate. Zuby says, good afternoon. I'm bench boost this week and need to replace Cliver. I'm looking at Morgan Gibbs-White and Bumo. Who would you pick? I've used my wild card and Bumo most likely will come back post 35 anyway. Probably Gibbs-White first. Just because I think him now is more attractive than Bumo away to Arsenal first and foremost, right? And I think there's a psychological of that. But you probably will want Bumo in the running. I'm pretty convinced of that. Yeah, you're saying that as well. Yeah, I think probably Gibbs-White. Get shot for that. Dagsten Hug says, hi, James. I need a defender for game week 32 and 34 as I'm free hitting 33. What are your thoughts on Cucurella? Best choice. Yeah, him and Bradley, mate. I think under that circumstance, and it said 34 is far enough away. Does the Trent concern kind of lurk for Bradley? So, yeah, Cucurella is the best choice there, mate, I think. Yep, like that. Shani Rassel says, normally I just ask you to rub the old noggin. I'll do it anyway. For luck from the FPL gods. But got a question this time. On assistant manager, but got Triple Palace and Newcastle already. Sell Gordon or Sarr for their respective managers. Depends. Do you want to move it again in 34? So if you don't, you probably go Glasner and keep your fingers crossed. If you're happy to move Howe onto Arteta or Guardiola, then I'd rather you took that path. So I think Howe is the best choice for assistant manager this week, personally. Until Palace win at Newcastle next week, and then obviously that is completely wrong, right? So I'm happy I'm on the Eddie Howe route, but I know that I'm going to move it on in game week 34. If you don't want to do that, Glasner's probably your right call, mate, and you just leave it be and then you focus your transfer for something else. Did I say 34? I meant 33, sorry. Adam Warner says, hi, James, play Rare or Martinez this week? Martinez. I think both will play, by the way. And that in itself makes me want to go and look at a bench boost. But actually having those two keepers in 33, you're probably heading for a 33 bench boost, aren't you? Makes sense. Yeah, I'd go Martinez, actually, I think, of the two. Steamroller says, hello, legend. Bench Darko, man. Or Vardial. Lineup dependent, isn't it? If Doku is a confirmed starter, start him. Otherwise, I'd go Vardial. Matt Maher says, got two Arsenal defenders, looking for a third Arsenal next week. Have Salah and Foden. Would you transfer any of those out for Saka? Only free hit 34 left. I wouldn't do it this week unless there's some negative information about Foden tomorrow morning and leave your decision for 33. But I probably wouldn't be taking either Salah or Foden out in 33. But I would probably at this moment, subject to how we feel about Saka this time next week, probably would, if I had to, go Foden Saka next week. Daniel Mackey says, hi, James, from 2018-23. From 2018 to 2023. 4 newly promoted clubs finished top 10 in the Premier League. Those were Wolves, Sheffield United, Leeds and Fulham. Why do you think more recently promoted clubs have been so awful? Okay. At the risk of upsetting people, I've got their bench boost 33 question. Allow me to give an answer. Number one reason is money. It's just getting silly now. Ipswich actually put very serious investment into their squad last summer. Not that they were excessive, but they put very serious investment in, but nowhere near. Leicester and Southampton couldn't really. Similarly to how Sheffield United and Luton couldn't last year, and Burnley were able to spend, but Burnley went on a path of probably going a little bit too inexperienced with the investment that they made in their squad. We have had 4 circumstances from the last 6 promoted teams where teams have been weaker than what they were promoted with. The exceptions, in my opinion, being Luton and Ipswich. PSR is having an impact here. I also think, one of the things people want to bridge here with this question is, how do we change it? And I'm not sure that we can. But I think the quality of manager is important. Now, please don't misunderstand. I'm saying Kieran McKenna's a bad manager, and if I'm not, it could be turn out to be a very, very good manager. But when I think about the Leicester example this year, and I think it's arguably turned out to be the best comment I've heard all season. We did Leicester versus Arsenal and Clash of Correspondence with Sam Martin and Adam Pritchard. Whenever Arsenal went to Leicester, whatever that was, 25-26, something like that. And Adam Pritchard said that Leicester had done the season the wrong way round. They had an experienced manager in Cooper, who I get many of the Leicester fans didn't like and felt had to be moved on. It's fair enough. And then appointed a manager that was inexperienced at Premier League level in Ruud van Nistelrooy. It's not worked. And I'm not saying Leicester were wrong to sack Cooper, because I think probably most Leicester fans would have sacked Cooper at that point, so I get it. But Leicester were 17th when they sacked him. Now that feels remarkable to think about. Now, had Cooper been appointed in February with Leicester 19th, and it's like, right, we're putting this guy in to try and get us out of it, probably would have got a bit more backing. Then we did the season the wrong way around. And I'm not saying Leicester would have stayed up with Cooper. I don't think they would have, actually. But I think they would have done better than what they have done. And his experience knowing how to keep a team up in the league. Maybe it's that. First and foremost, the development of just... Because we can't be aiming for top 10. Promoted teams can't be aiming for it now, right? Don't matter even if it's a club of, even as big as Leeds come up next year, Daniel. You offer a Leeds fan 17th now. They might, no, we Leeds would do better. Trust me, it'd be a great result if that's where they finish next year, considering what's happened to these promoted clubs. And I think most Leeds fans would be intelligent enough to know that. It's not to say they couldn't do better, but I'm saying 17th would be a great result. You take it and then you try and build your platform. Kind of similar to what Forest have done. Thomas Frank is a brilliant example of an evolution of a manager who his adaptation to tactics has been absolutely key to Brentford. I'd put it out here, and you don't have to put it in the chat, right? But just have a think about this. When you think about the teams that get relegated next year now, and you look at the current Premier League, the 17 teams that remain, who do you think? And you think, right, maybe Wolves might be back in trouble, right? But difficult to foresee anybody else. You know, the other teams down there, Tottenham, United, West Ham, really think any of them getting relegated next year? I don't think so. But if you took like a Thomas Frank out of Brentford, how do you feel about Brentford? If you took Iriolo out of Bournemouth or Silva out of Fulham, but I think Frank is kind of the best example of a promoted manager. Because although I didn't watch a lot of them, everybody tells me that the Brentford team that got promoted played brilliant attacking football. They then got promoted and were unapologetic about being direct into Tony, being aggressive, playing on second balls, long throws, set piece threat, all those things, completely evolved. And slowly, they are moving back to more of a front foot, attacking, possession-based football style. That's brilliant management. I'm almost talking myself into Thomas Frank next Tottenham manager, aren't I? I don't know if it's scalable to the jump. But that's an example of a manager that's come up and not been stuck to his methods and adapted not just once, but twice. And it might even mean that it needs something like that. A manager to be able to adapt for promotion, to security, to progression. Might be the only way. You need a manager that can play different styles. Shani Rassel says, oh, and please rub the noggin. I've already done that, mate. Cheers, pal. James Wright says, I'm wildcard 32. No free hit. Keen on Liverpool assets, as well as Salah. Who would you be looking at? Diaz, Van Dijk, maybe Bradley. I don't think we're looking at anyone other than Bradley. Otherwise, Would not bother with Luis Diaz at the moment, I don't think. Or Jota. Not enough interest at this moment. I get it. Next 3 fixtures incredible. If you had to pump one, you could even make a case for Alisson. Yeah, I'm not massively keen. I think it's almost a little bit more of a headache in the sense that because they play every week, like Gakpo get this one, Diaz get that one, Jota get that one off. It feels like it'd be a bit like that. So I think it's Bradley, and that could become a problem, and Mo, and I wouldn't bother. Nerm says, do you think Elanga starts? Need him for MUBB this week? If no, then who to get? Sub 7 million max on Crystal Palace and Newcastle. Yeah, it's tough, mate. So is it this week and next? Yeah, it's not good, mate. I'm not going to bullshit you. It's not good. It's really, really not great at all. Under 7. It's nothing. All the ones that stand out, like I said, all the ones I said earlier, your Langas, your Savinos, your Mitomas, Bowen not this week, next week. I think he's over that price anyway. Bumo's over that price. Shit fixture this week anyway. Arguably, it's the one I said earlier. Maybe it's Chelsea, but then Chelsea don't feel great for next week. 32 and 34, yeah, this week and next week, no. I'd love to tell you a Wolves player. There's no Wolves player to get, mate. So there'll be a Wolves player, midfield player. I'm sure probably scores against my team at the weekend. But God knows, guessing which one. You've got Cunha to come back into that team as well. It's shite, mate. The safest play is maybe still Morgan Gibbs-White. But I don't know how much you want to look at that Tottenham away next week. And if Elanga plays, you feel silly about it, don't you? Shocking. Rodgers is... Is it better than Elanga this week? I think Rodgers gets minutes. Let's at least say that. I don't think Morgan Rodgers will be a 0.0. Anthony Elanga might be, right? We just don't know. I think Elanga will be involved as well. I think there's not real reason to think that Morgan Rodgers will be a 0.0. So maybe that's just the right play. He's Rodgers, and then you're walking into the double next week. He almost definitely starts against Newcastle 33, and then it's a City game, let's say. Maybe it is still Rodgers. Sorry. But I don't want to paint something up as a spectacular choice when I don't think there are any. I said earlier in the stream, my instinct is that Anthony Elanga may be a substitute. Martin says bench boost. I feel like I've already done that one, mate. But yeah, if I didn't, thumbs up anyway. Charlie says start Saliba or Vardiol. Thank you. I would go Vardiol. Matt Smith says morning from California. Loving the Bradford City on this day content. I was there when McCall fell off the car. Didn't spill even a drop of beer. If you've never seen Stuart McCall fall off the car, please do YouTube that at the end of this stream. James Morrison says start Wood or Elanga. Wood. I think Wood will either play or won't. I think it's a different scenario to Elanga. I think he'll either be fit or he's still injured, one or the other. Daniel Mackey says, would you triple captain Isak or bench boost with Verbrugge, Milenkovic, Jimenez and Robinson? I think Muniz maybe plays again, doesn't he? With them two, Jimenez and Muniz, it feels like what he's genuinely quite keen to do is one of them goes on a little streak, and it feels like Muniz might be having it at the moment. The goals at Tottenham and Arsenal as a substitute, and goal against Liverpool, scored in big games as well. Yeah, I know Tottenham. Yeah, big game for Fulham. They get on the streak and they just stay in the team for a little bit, and then the streak stops and he puts the other one back in. I think Muniz plays, mate. And that would be massively off-putting. But the base of that, Verbrugge and Milenkovic, is pretty good. Next week is not better. Verbrugge at Brentford, Milenkovic at Tottenham, Jimenez and Robinson against Chelsea. Yeah, if you've got to bench boost one of the two, Daniel, I think it's this week, isn't it? Can you go Jimenez to João Pedro? Look at it. Just look at it. Charlie Edwards says best defender to replace Gabriel on bench boost 32, free at 34. I feel like I've covered this similar, mate. I mean, it's Saliba, or if you don't have Vardiol, He's saying he's already got Vardy on Munoz and the Newcastle. So yeah, Saliba or Bradley, I think. Craig Wilson says, get those likes in early, folks. You all know Planet FPL deserves it. Thank you, Craig. Have a good weekend. Callan says, hey, James, good news for Liverpool fans with Salah news and Van Dijk imminent. If you could take any Liverpool player at Tottenham apart from those two, who would it be? I would take Alexis McAllister. I think the brilliance of McAllister is he could play 6, 8 or 10. I think for us he'd probably play 6, by the way. But yeah, I think central midfield needs big work for Tottenham. Big work while Bergvall, who's doing really well, and Archie Gray develop further. It needs work in between now and then. And I think Alexis McAllister would be the best fit for my team. And there's 0% chance of that happening, mate. So we might as well move on. Zem says, hi, James. Where did you and Suj meet? In an office in Edmonton when he employed me. JP says, and if you want more of that, may I recommend the FPL Have a Beer stream that I did with Gary on Gary's channel. It's about an hour and a half and includes how did me and Suj meet and how did Planet FPL start and all that kind of jazz. Zem says, that's what we've just done. JP, how good is Merino as a differential now? I will sell Gabriel soon as I also have Raya. There's no reason to think he won't keep on playing. I don't think that makes him a guaranteed starter tomorrow, by the way, but he's obviously covering in that 9 position pretty well at the moment. So yeah, fine. I think probably going into 33, you'll probably get quite a bit of interest. And if I still have a Kluivert issue and come to the conclusion that Saka isn't going to play twice in 33, I might be going Kluivert than Merino rather than Palmer to Saka. FPL Uproar says, hello, James. With Mitoma and Saka being doubts, would you still bench boost this week? Cheers. No, I don't have concern on Saka. Mikel Arteta has pretty much told you that he's fit. I don't think he's got a reason to lie and bullshit Brentford at this stage. The worst case scenario is Saka gets a pointer, a 1-pointer. Mitoma obviously could be a 0. I'd be looking at trying to move that on and I would proceed. Or see what the Brighton ITKs are saying. Ross Cordingley says, on bench boost this week, what would you do with Gordon? Move to Murphy? Yes. Cole Silver says, Jonathan Woodgate always comes up in Premier League era and Newcastle teams. How is he seen by Spurs fans? He is seen as someone who scored one of the most important goals in our modern history, with obviously the goal off his nose against Chelsea in the 2008 League Cup final. I think Woodgate played, I don't even know if he got like 25 games for us, mate. Was considered an extremely good centre-back, very cultured. He wasn't blessed with incredible pace anyway, but running was a problem for him. But defending the penalty area, really good. Leadership, good. Composed on the ball. You're a really good player, but we hardly saw him, Cole. I think if you ask most Tottenham fans, other than that cup final, you said, can you remember Woodgate playing for Tottenham? Most of them, not really, no. John Ijugwu said, start one Vardy or Kirkes. I'll be starting Vardy over Kirkes, mate. Stefan P says, hi James, I'm on bench boost 32. What should I do with Elanga and Gordon? 13.5 million budget if I sell them both. I'm already 3 times Palace and Newcastle. Well, you're not, are you? Right. So Gordon to Murphy. That's going to leave you what, circa 8 and a bit, isn't it? Can you get Bruno Fernandes in? Probably wouldn't, would you? Maybe Merino was a cheeky one, actually. Merino and Murphy. Cheeky way of looking at it. I guess for those who are asking about a player for the next 2 weeks, he's got to be a consideration. I think there's every chance he won't start for Arsenal tomorrow. It really is a pain in the arse at the moment. Yeah, I think Gordon to Murphy, and it's what can you do with what's left, Stefan? You probably can't get to Bruno. If you can, I'd consider it. The one thing you know with Bruno is he'd be out there. There'd be no Bruno Fernandes ain't playing at Newcastle. They're resting him because of the Leon ties. Bruno would still play, wouldn't he? Right, I'm going to go down to Gaurav, and then that's what I can see on my screen, and I'm going to end it there. Cloudy, Sky Fantasy Football Show, my friend Ian Parents this afternoon. James, hope all is well, mate. It is, mate. Hope you are too. This season has right forward Mo Salah joined left forward Thierry Henry as the second undisputed pick in an all-time Premier League side. Yeah, I think Mo's got to go in now, hasn't he, I think? The only problem with... if you're doing like a 4-3-3 and you've got Salah and Henry as your wide forwards with, I don't know, hypothetical highest goal scorer in Premier history, Alan Shearer as the 9. What about like Ronaldo and Giggs, and do they go in? And I know people was, Ronaldo hit his best when he was Real Madrid. Yeah, but the Cristiano Ronaldo that left Manchester United was already pretty extraordinary. Kind of want all three of them in, don't you? I think Ronaldo, Salah, and Henry. I think. Tanky says, I have bench boost to play with wildcard, even if there are no doubles in 36. Should I still set myself to bench boost then, rather than wildcard now bench boost 33? Would mean triple caps in 36. You don't remember triple caps in Marmoush's single away to Southampton. Look, there's every chance there will be doubles on 36. I think a key bit with what happens next might be the actual selections for game week 37. Could be really important in that. I think there's rumours that there might be a Tuesday selection in that already, and that would point further towards fixtures being brought forward to game week 36, with the exception of maybe if Forest made the cup final then being the Thursday, or if Tottenham remain in Europe, that might change something, particularly maybe for Crystal Palace and their fixture maybe with Wolves. So, I mean, I've been really clear. I don't love the bench boost at the end, mate, but I'm not sure this is the right week to be wildcarding. If you're wildcarding now to bench boost next week, what are you doing with Newcastle players next week? That's the big question. If you're happy, I'm going to go Isak, Murphy, Livramento, and you're happy to bench boost them all next week, I'd say crack on and do that personally. Hiradi Majumdar says, hi James, I'm on bench boost 32 with Bruggen, Elanga, Williams and Gabriel and 2 free transfers. Was thinking of replacing Gabriel with Bradley. Thoughts, not sure who to replace Elanga with if he's out. I have 2 free transfers. Yeah, the Gabriel to Bradley move is fine. Puts a little bit, probably about $1 million or so in the bank as well. Doesn't get you high up. The thing is, you could go Marino and you don't start tomorrow. It's honestly, all of those midfielders, you know, I never used the word trap, but every midfielder under 7 million this week feels like it might be. I would go Pedro Neto, I think. If that's your main focus on this week, that's what I'd do. I'd go Langan, Gabriel to Bradley and Pedro Neto, I think. I cannot believe Pedro Neto won't start for Chelsea this weekend. And we'll finish with Gaurav says, hi James, wildcard 35, bench boost 36 and free hit 37. Interesting. Gordon to Murphy and Semenyo to Diaz till 34. Also, Bradley safe with Trent till 34. Thanks and good luck. Please qualify for next stage for bench boost 37. I think you meant bench boost 36. I can't guarantee you that will happen. The Diaz pick, as I've said, I'm not massively keen on, mate. The other one is absolutely fine. Thank you very much, FPL Uproar. As a reminder, guys, if you want to head over to obviously my Twitter account at Planet FPL Pod and share that tweet from Draft Alchemy. It doesn't cost anything to retweet anything. That'll obviously be hugely appreciated. Next week's content is going to look a little bit different. Dead Night Stream still goes ahead tomorrow. Obviously in the UK it is a bank holiday next Friday, Good Friday, and then the following Monday. So there'll be no Planet FPL content next Friday or on the Monday. Also, I'm going to be trying to make my way back from Germany next Friday, as I'm obviously going to be in Frankfurt. So next week's going to look a little bit different. It is an Ask James stream, but it's going to be on Tuesday next week. Time to be confirmed, I can tell you. And Suji's flying next week. Clayton's going to Madrid. So I've just got guests next week. I can tell you the mayor of FPL, Tom Campbell, is going to guest host the Game Review podcast with me on Monday. Tuesday says Ask James. Wednesday, Clash of Correspondence will be Ipswich versus Arsenal with Paul Gort Allen, Adam Pritchard. And Thursday, Clash of Correspondence, West Ham versus Southampton with Chris Stone and Matt Sam. If you want to support the show, but there's plenty more going on there on Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Support the show if you want access to the additional content, our community, and because you want to help us keep the lights on. But otherwise, thanks very much to everybody who's contributed in the chat. Sorry if I've not got to your question, please feel free to tag me at Planet FPL Pod on Twitter or Blue Sky, and I will get back to you before the end of the day, although not in my DMs, please. Have a great game week, everyone. Have a great weekend. Deadline stream 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. For the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please. Man, ciao.